Is it time for more PS5 rumors and leaks? It's time for more PS5 rumors and leaks. So earlier this morning, these slides were making the rounds. I think it was probably even as late as last night, people were passing these things around. There are these slides that people are saying appears to be from Sony. They have confidential posted all over them. And since they've really been making the rounds, people have been trying to figure out if they're real, if they're fake. Does this information line up? Does this information not line up? And honestly, I can't tell you one way or the other if they are real. But I did want to look at the specs that are at least being proposed by these slides, because some of them stood out to me right away as, I don't know how they would get that into a retail unit. So I'm more along the lines of this in no way describing a retail PS5 either way. But I thought it'd be fun to take a look at it. I'm sure eventually it'll come out if these slides are real, if they're fake, if somebody decided to Photoshop and put these together for fun. Because some information, as people have said, there's a lot of people in the background right now trying to work to corroborate these. People like Jason Schreier from Kotaku. I know the No was looking around to try to figure out if this stuff is real. So I'm sure you'll either see articles or videos from either of those sources at some point going one way or the other. But I thought it'd be fun to take a look at these specs and maybe try to get an idea as to where the PS5 could land and any of the proposed specs, if any of these could even show up there. So in the off chance these are real, these slides are real, I won't show them because they're confidential, apparently, written all over them and everything, but I will at least tell you what the specs are, and we'll kind of take a look from there. So the first thing they really talk about is the CPU being AMD based. Of course, there's nothing really too fancy when it comes to that. They didn't talk about clock speeds. They do talk about an 8-core processor, something we figure, Zen based, and of course the GPU being Navi based. That's all stuff we've heard previously from Semi-Accurate, so it's not really new. But they did at least put a teraflop number on it for raw power, saying it's 14.2 teraflops. That's a little higher than I originally thought when I kind of estimated 10 to 12. But considering what I think we're looking at here is a development kit, it's very possible could be slightly stronger than what the retail unit would be. Now you might be wondering, why do you think this is a dev kit? Well, the next two pieces of information, to me, if it's correct at all, screams dev kit. So let's start with the memory. They are quoting 32 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory, which to me is impossible to fit in a $500 be the roof, $400 to $500 game console. I do think Sony is in love with that $400 price tag, and I don't blame them. It's a good price for a console. No way they could fit that in there. Even if they released this thing in 2020, I have no idea how they'd get 32 gigabytes of GDDR6. I have no idea why the console would need that much. I mean, we're going for 4K here, I assume, this generation coming up, right? Maybe 4K 60. I don't know why at all you would need 32 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. You would get along fine with 16 gigabytes, and it would, of course, cut your cost then on RAM in half per unit. Now, they also go on to talk about the hard drive being a 1 terabyte SSD. Now, you heard 1 terabyte, you said, okay, that makes sense. SSD, though, why? I think most people would rather have a 2 terabyte mechanical drive, and that makes more sense, considering it will be a 2.5-inch drive from like a laptop, for example, would fit in there, and that makes more sense, considering we'll have 4K textures, 4K assets, and those are going to take up a lot of space. So we'd rather have more space than an SSD that's just going to cost more anyway. Now, you might be wondering why I thought dev kit. Well, for one, generally a dev kit has a significant amount more RAM, for the most part, than the retail unit. A great example, the Xbox One X. Of course, we know it's 12 gigabytes, right, of GDDR5 memory is built into the Xbox One X, and we know it has a 1 terabyte mechanical drive. The development kit has 24 gigabytes of GDDR5 and a 1 terabyte SSD. Okay, so they doubled the memory and they put in an SSD, a 1 terabyte SSD for developers. Okay, well that sounds kind of familiar because I do think the PS5 will probably have more RAM than the Xbox One X, and that would probably put it right around 16 gigabytes of memory, as that probably is the next step up without getting too crazy with RAM. 16 gigabytes makes sense. GDDR6 is interesting because I know AMD has been working more towards HBM2 memory, but GDDR6 is set to go into mass production this summer, based on interviews at GDC for places like Phoenix. Yeah, so we could see GDDR6 go into mass production this summer, around July, and that would actually make it available to people like Nvidia for their new cards. And of course, AMD's new cards that we assume from Navi are coming out at the end of this year. And that would also work in the PlayStation 5's favor if they want to launch late 2019. I still don't know why they would want to launch in 2019, considering they're the leaders. If I was Sony, I would be waiting for Microsoft and their Xbox to make the first move, because you're selling PS4s like crazy. You're actually making money on them probably at this point, and you are in what most analysts call the harvest years, where you have a massive install base and you're just cleaning up on licensing fees, your subscriptions for PlayStation Plus, and you have minimal spend on your hardware at this point. So I don't know why you would rush to introduce a brand new system only to rebuild your entire install base, and at that point you could be risking your market lead. I mean, it's massive. It's over probably at least twice of what the Xbox One X is. So why, or Xbox One in general, why would you restart that? They also go on to say that the all new games that start development after April 1st, I noticed that too, April 1st is in there, so, but April 1st will be exclusive to the PS5, which they have codenamed in these slides Epsilon. I guess, sure, why not Epsilon? I mean, they do codename Neo before and everything, so they're not the best at naming things, I don't think, but sure, codename Epsilon, why not? But it's starting April 1st, and that's weird because MLB The Show should be on the PS4 and the PS5 at the same time. In fact, most sports games do that. Now, of course, third-party developers will do what they want. I mean, we saw FIFA on the PS2 up to, 2014 in Europe? So, yeah, they'll do what they want, but internal Sony studios, and of course, they pretty much run baseball at this point with their MLB The Show series, that should also be on the PS4. So maybe that's not a blanket statement, because of course, you need years to develop games, and they'll have to have some games for launch and some games for the first year. But I think that one's a little off. I don't really know why they wouldn't really be pushing towards something like MLB The Show to stay with their, 80+ million install base probably at that time. I mean, the PS4 will probably be 100 million by the time the PS5 even launches, so I don't know why you would leave that behind so quickly. I feel like they're going to be developing games for both, even really leading up to the PS5. They also mentioned backwards compatibility. I figure that would be by default, but apparently you need an update patch. Now, update patches aren't technically new, as if you want 360 games to run on the Xbox One, we need updates, we need patches to make that work, and they've been going through and of course making a lot of them backwards compatible, but that was because there were different architectures involved, PowerPC to x86, whereas the PS4, x86, and then of course the PS5 will be x86 as well, so I don't really know why you need patches for that, especially if you design it around backwards compatibility from the get-go, like from building this thing and the OS and everything, why you wouldn't just have that ready to go. I understand maybe an update patch would help it run better and take advantage, right, of any of the new features from Navi or something, but to have an update patch to make it run at all, it would be kind of disappointing. I would like to see them launch the PS5 and then immediately the entire library is available, because then, you know what, if they have kind of a subpar, I would say, launch year, well, the entire PS4 library is backwards compatible. So looking at this leak, this rumored leak, whether it's real or not, it is not pointing to the retail PS5. Either way, this very well could be fake. People have talked about on Reset Era, for example, and other places, that it doesn't line up with all the information, but they said some of it kind of does. So okay, maybe there is something there. I don't know one way or the other. Like I said, I've talked to some people to see if anyone can corroborate this. Not really anyone can. I know, like I said, the No and Kotaku and stuff are trying to pick out the source and figure out if it's real or not. Again, I'm sure more information will come out soon telling us if it is real or not. If I had to take a guess, I would say no matter what, this isn't the retail kit. This is probably a developer kit, because no way could they jam 32 gigabytes of GDDR6 in a system that is going to be doing 4K. There's no need. It's a waste of money. For a dev kit, that makes a lot of sense. They could use that extra RAM. But a 1 terabyte SSD, these are all things that Sony would not do if they want to release a system that is affordable. So either way, don't look at this to get any kind of barometer for the retail system. In fact, the 14.2 teraflops could just be extra power used for the developer kit, and it could still come out as a 12 teraflop, even a 10 teraflop system. So we'll have to wait for more from Sony. It's just very interesting that some of this stuff is now coming out, whether it's very, very good looking, right, rumored leaks and everything, even semi-accurate dropping their information. We're hearing a lot about the PS5 now. It's really starting to make the rounds, a lot of news. And I do wonder if we're going to find out something about it before the end of 2018, whether it's in November or something, they do a whole press conference, maybe their PlayStation experience. So while a 2019 release is not out of the question, like a holiday 2019 release, I don't really know why they would do it. It's kind of up to Microsoft to start the next generation, so I don't see why Sony couldn't wait until 2020 to really start the nenext generation up. But let me know what you guys think about these leaks. What do you think about the specs? What do you think about the release window for the PS5? And do you think this is all just one big, hoax or fake or anything? I'm curious what you think about this. Maybe you do think all these specs are legit. Maybe you think this could actually be a thing. I'm curious what you think the price would be, though. That's my one question to you, if you think this is all real. What do you think the price would be? Because I feel like Sony wants a $400 system. I don't think they want to release a $600, $700, or $800 system. I just don't see how that would happen. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.